The bus stop at Havenridge Academy always looked the same: rows of clean uniforms, designer backpacks, and laughter that never quite reached the eyes. But that morning something shifted. The laughter turned sharp, cutting through the cool air like broken glass. When Imani Reed stepped onto the sidewalk, the world seemed to pause, not because she was late, not because she was new, but because she was different. Her skin carried the warmth of Georgia's sun, her braids tied back neatly, her white polo ironed crisp. She walked with quiet confidence, the kind that comes from a home where respect is taught before pride. But in that town, that kind of strength was a challenge. "Hold up," a voice barked. The crowd parted and Cole Henderson stepped forward, the glint of his varsity ring catching the morning light. His Letterman jacket, red and white, hung off his shoulders like a crown. Behind him, a few of his friends leaned against the side of the yellow bus, smirking, arms folded. Macy Collins stood near the steps, her manicured fingers clutching her phone, recording what everyone knew was about to become a show. "Where you think you're going?" Cole said, his grin wide and cruel. "This bus doesn't go to the public school." The others laughed on cue. Imani stopped just short of the step, her backpack strap slipping down her shoulder. She could feel the heat of their stares, the mocking eyes that sized her up as though she didn't belong on that patch of pavement. She said nothing. That was her rule: silence first, words later, if they were earned. Her father, Darius Reed, had drilled that into her. You can't control what people say, but you decide what power their words have. But here, surrounded by a wall of white jerseys and privilege, that lesson pressed hard against her chest. Cole circled closer, blocking her path. "You're the new transfer, right? Diversity scholarship." His voice rose, letting everyone hear the word. He turned slightly, grinning at his audience. "Guess the school board needed some color this year." Laughter rippled through the group. Imani felt her pulse beat in her ears. Her hand tightened around her water bottle until the plastic crackled. The driver glanced through the mirror but said nothing. Silence spread like smoke, thick and choking. Macy moved closer, her voice syrupy sweet. Don't look so scared, honey. You'll fit right in eventually." She tilted her head, pretending sympathy. "You might want to watch how you talk, though. People here don't like attitude." "I wasn't talking," Imani replied softly, her tone calm but cutting. The laughter faltered for half a second. Cole's smirk deepened, irritation flashing in his eyes. "You got a mouth, huh?" he muttered, stepping closer. "Let me teach you some manners." The words made the group lean forward in anticipation. It was a scene they had played before, Cole picking a target, the others watching. But this time was different. This time the target didn't shrink. Imani's father's voice echoed in her head, steady, patient, unmistakable. "When you stand tall, they see a threat. When you stay calm, they see their own weakness." She took a breath, straightened her shoulders, and met Cole's gaze without flinching. "Move," she said, quiet but firm. Cole blinked, then laughed. "Move? You think you can tell me what to do?" He stepped forward again until his shadow fell across her shoes. His voice dropped low, meant only for her. "You don't belong here. We worked for this. My dad built half this school." "What did your dad build?" For a second she almost answered. But she didn't. Because she could see it now, the way his lips curled, the way the others waited to laugh again. They didn't want an answer. They wanted a reaction. Cole reached out and grabbed the strap of her backpack, tugging her back slightly. "I said, you're not getting on." Her body froze for one heartbeat, her breath shallow. Every insult she'd ignored, every whisper in the hallways, every look that told her she didn't belong, it all pulsed through her veins. But she didn't swing, didn't shout. She let go of the strap, letting him hold it for just a second longer. Then she stepped forward, forcing him to stumble slightly. The laughter flickered again, uneasy this time. Macy's camera phone trembled as she tried to keep it steady. Imani turned her face toward the open bus door, her voice even. "If this bus is for Havenridge students, then I'm on the right one." The driver hesitated, glancing between Cole and the girl standing firm in front of him. Behind the glass, faces peered out, some curious, some uncomfortable, a few ashamed. Cole let out a short laugh, masking the sting of being challenged. "Sweetheart," he said, raising his voice, "maybe you didn't read the fine print. This school's about class, not charity." A few students chuckled weakly, but it sounded forced. Imani's calm had done something unexpected. It cracked their confidence. Her silence didn't make her small. It made them nervous. Just then the bus engine rumbled, drowning out the awkward tension. The driver looked back once more. "You getting on or not?" he asked quietly. Imani took one step forward. Cole blocked her again, his arm stretching across the doorway. "I said no." Her eyes dropped to his hand, cocky, certain he was untouchable. Her father's words came again, sharper this time. "Control isn't weakness. It's your weapon." She looked up, her expression steady. "Move your hand," she said. And for the first time Cole didn't have a comeback. He hesitated, his smirk flickering. Something in her tone, something measured, unafraid, made the onlookers shift uncomfortably. In that still moment before the first confrontation, before the lesson that would shake the entire school, Imani Reed stood taller than anyone else on that curb. The sunlight hit her face, and the quiet courage in her eyes said everything words could not. She had nothing to prove, but they had everything to learn. The bus door hissed shut, and the sound cut through the air like a verdict. For a moment nobody spoke. The students stood frozen, waiting to see if Imani Reed would back down. Cole Henderson's smirk had returned, but it was thinner now, more forced, like someone trying to laugh through fear. He leaned forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You think just 'cause you're tough you belong here? Newsflash, you'll always be the charity case." His words were meant to crush her, but they didn't reach her heart the way he hoped. Because Imani had been hearing versions of those words her whole life, whispered in stores, muttered by neighbors, printed between the lines of polite smiles. Her father had told her to expect them, to never let them decide who she was. That memory rose now, clear as morning light. Her father, Darius Reed, standing in their small backyard before sunrise, the air sharp and still. "Balance first," he'd said, steadying her stance with gentle hands. "You fight with control, not anger." At 12 she didn't understand. 17 she did. Darius Reed had spent 15 years in the army, surviving battlefields that broke stronger men. He came home with scars he never explained and discipline that never wavered. Every morning he ran at dawn, boots pounding pavement, never late, never tired. And when Imani asked why he pushed himself so hard, his answer was always the same. "Because one day you'll face a fight I can't see coming. I need to know you'll win it without losing yourself." Now, staring at Cole's hand blocking her path, she felt that lesson vibrate in her chest like a drumbeat. Control. Don't strike first. Don't break until they do. The silence stretched. A few students fidgeted, the thrill of the moment turning sour. Even Macy, phone still recording, glanced nervously toward the school entrance. Imani exhaled once, slow and steady, then took another step forward. Cole didn't move. He was used to winning these moments, used to laughter, submission, or tears. What he wasn't used to was calm. "You really don't get it, do you?" he said, voice tightening. "This school isn't built for you." He reached out, grabbing her wrist roughly, trying to pull her back from the steps. The gasp that escaped the crowd was sharp, collective. Time slowed the grip on her skin, the sound of her pulse, the weight of humiliation pressing on her chest. For the first time her calm faltered. Her father's words blurred into one final command in her head. "Finish what they start." In one fluid motion, she twisted her wrist inward, breaking his grip cleanly. Before he could react, she shifted her weight, pivoted her shoulder, and swept her leg just enough to take his balance. The move was small, graceful, almost quiet. But the thud when Cole hit the pavement echoed through the lot like thunder. Gasps broke through the silence. Macy's phone dropped from her hand, clattering on the concrete. Cole groaned, clutching his arm, disbelief written all over his face. His friend stood frozen, caught between anger and confusion. Imani didn't raise her voice. She didn't gloat. She simply stepped back, breathing steady, her hand trembling only slightly. "Don't ever touch me again," she said, her voice low and steady. There was power in the restraint, a kind of dignity that made every word hit harder. One of the boys behind Cole, broad-shouldered, pale, hiding fear behind bravado, moved forward. "You think you can just dash?" His words cut short when Imani turned to face him fully, her eyes fierce but not wild. He stopped mid-step. She didn't have to move again. The strength in her stare said enough. The bus driver finally spoke, voice shaky. "All right, enough, enough." But it was too late. The air had already changed. The bullies weren't the loud ones anymore. They were the silent ones, eyes darting, faces pale. Cole struggled to his feet, his pride more wounded than his arm. "You're done," he spat, pointing at her. "You'll be expelled for this." He looked around, desperate for agreement. But no one spoke. The crowd that once cheered his cruelty now avoided his eyes. It was the first time in a long while that Cole Henderson looked small. Imani didn't answer. She stepped aside, letting the silence finish what her words couldn't. When she finally climbed the bus steps, she could feel every eye on her, not in mockery this time, but in stunned respect. The driver didn't dare question her. He just opened the door wider and muttered, "Find a seat." As she walked down the aisle, whispers followed her like a trail of smoke. "Did you see that?" She flipped him like nothing. She didn't even yell. But none of it reached her. She sank into an empty seat by the window, hands resting in her lap, her breathing slow. She wasn't proud. She wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Because this wasn't victory, it was survival. And survival always came with a cost. Outside, Cole stood in the sunlight, holding his wrist, watching the bus pull away. The reflection of his face in the glass was pale and uncertain. The world he ruled had just cracked open, and he didn't yet understand that it would never be the same again. Imani looked out the window, her eyes catching the faint glimmer of sunlight on the road. Her reflection stared back, calm and unflinching. For the first time that morning, she let herself exhale. Her father had been right. Control was her greatest weapon, and today it had saved her. The bus ride to Havenridge Academy felt longer than usual that morning. The low hum of the engine mixed with the soft murmurs of students who didn't know what to say. Some stole glances at Imani Reed sitting quietly by the window, her backpack hugged to her chest. Her reflection looked calm, but beneath the stillness, her heart beat heavy with the weight of what had just happened. She hadn't planned to fight back. She never wanted a scene. All she'd wanted was a normal first day. But normal had never been an option in a place where people decided who you were before you even opened your mouth. As the bus rolled to a stop, she took one deep breath and stood, eyes forward, posture straight. She stepped off the bus with the same quiet grace she'd had when she got on, but this time, the silence that followed her wasn't mockery, it was awe. Cole Henderson was already there, nursing his arm, face flushed with anger and humiliation. He'd called his friends together near the school gates, whispering sharply, trying to rewrite the story before it spread. Macy Collins had her phone in her hand again, scrolling through the footage she'd managed to save before dropping it. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Cole, it looks bad. Like really bad." He snatched the phone and glared at the screen. It showed him grabbing Imani's wrist, then the moment he hit the ground. He swore under his breath, panic flaring. "Delete it," he snapped. "Now." But a few other students had already recorded their own clips. The story was out whether he liked it or not. As the bell rang, the campus filled with students whispering. Some smirked, some looked curious, others avoided eye contact. Imani walked through the hallway feeling their eyes on her, their curiosity thick in the air. Inside, she wanted to disappear, but another part of her refused to shrink. She'd done nothing wrong. She defended herself. Her father's words echoed again, steady and grounding. Courage isn't about looking fearless. It's doing what's right when every eye is waiting for you to fall. By the time she reached her locker, the tension had spread across the school. The principal's assistant appeared, stern-faced and brisk. "Imani Reed, the principal wants to see you. Now." She followed without a word, her shoes clicking softly on the polished floor. When she entered Mr. Raymond Cole's office, the air felt colder. He stood behind his desk, tall and composed, his gray suit immaculate. His expression was unreadable, the kind that could shift from empathy to authority in a single breath. Sitting across from him were Cole Henderson and Macy Collins, both looking like they'd rehearsed their version of the truth. "Miss Reed," the principal began slowly, "I've been informed there was an altercation at the bus stop this morning. Would you like to tell me your side before I review the reports?" Imani opened her mouth, but Cole spoke first, his voice a mixture of false pain and practiced innocence. "Sir, I tried to help her get on the bus, but she snapped. She threw me down. She's violent." His performance was confident, but his shaking hands betrayed him. Macy chimed in quickly. It's true, Mr. Cole. She went crazy. Everyone saw it. Imani's jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. The principal looked between them, his gaze sharp. I see, he said finally, then turned to Imani. And your version? Her voice was steady. He grabbed me. I told him to stop. He didn't. So I made him. There was no anger, no defensiveness, just truth. Before anyone could respond, a knock came at the door. A teacher stepped in with a pale freshman boy at her side. The boy looked terrified but determined. Mr. Cole, the teacher said. This student asked to speak. He saw everything. The room fell silent. The boy's voice shook at first but grew stronger. They were laughing at her. Cole wouldn't let her on the bus. He grabbed her first. Everyone saw it. He looked at Imani, then back at the principal. She didn't do anything wrong. The shift in the room was immediate. Macy's confidence drained away. Cole's smirk vanished. Mr. Raymond Cole leaned back, hands folded, eyes hardening as the truth settled. Thank you, he said to the student, who nodded quickly and left. The principal stood, his voice calm but cold. Mr. Henderson, Miss Collins, your actions this morning are grounds for disciplinary review. Physical harassment and racial intimidation have no place here. His tone made it clear this wasn't negotiable. Cole's face reddened. You can't suspend me. I'm team captain. The season, the principal interrupted, is less important than the kind of man you become off the field. You're suspended. Effective immediately. Macy tried to protest, but her voice broke into a whisper. Sir, we were just . You were cruel, Mr. Cole said sharply. And you filmed it. He turned to Imani then, his expression softening. Miss Reed, you may return to class. I'll be calling your parents today, not for punishment, but to commend your composure. Imani blinked, surprised by the word commend. She nodded once, quietly. When she left the office, the hallway outside was lined with students pretending not to stare. The story had already spread, how she'd stood her ground, how the bullies had been called out in front of everyone. Some smiled faintly when she passed, small gestures of respect she hadn't expected. Others turned away, faces flushed with guilt. As she walked toward her next class, she caught her reflection in the glass case of trophies by the hallway. For the first time that morning, her eyes didn't look tired. They looked steady, alive, and sure. She had faced them, spoken truth, and the truth had won. But what she didn't know yet was that the moment she stepped out of that office, someone else was already walking toward the school, someone whose presence would change everything about what happened next. By the time the final bell rang, the story had stretched across every hallway and lunch table at Haven Ridge Academy. Some called Imani a hero, others whispered words that made her skin crawl. But all agreed on one thing: nobody had ever seen anything like it. She moved through the corridors quietly, ignoring the stares, her books hugged close to her chest. The weight of the day pressed on her, not in guilt but in exhaustion. Winning didn't feel like victory when it came from defending your right to exist. Outside, the afternoon light spilled across the parking lot where she waited for her father. She wanted to warn him before the school called, to tell him she was fine. But when a deep, steady voice rolled across the lot, she froze. Imani. The sound of her name and his tone carried both calm and command. Darius Reed was already walking toward her, his army jacket faded at the seams, his steps deliberate. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man reading a battlefield before making a move. Students nearby fell silent, instinctively stepping aside as he approached. Cole Henderson and his friends stood near the bus, their laughter dying the instant they saw him. The sight of Darius, a tall black man with the kind of presence that spoke louder than shouting, made the air tighten. Mr. Raymond Cole, the principal, appeared from the doorway just in time to see the confrontation forming. Mr. Reed, he called, his tone cautious. I was going to contact you this evening. There's been an incident involving your daughter. Darius didn't look at him right away. His eyes were fixed on Cole Henderson, who swallowed hard but stayed rooted in place. I saw the video, Darius said quietly, voice deep enough to make the crowd's murmurs vanish. I saw your son grab my daughter. His words weren't angry, they were measured, precise, the way soldiers deliver facts that can't be argued. Cole's jaw twitched, his earlier bravado gone. Sir, I didn't mean dash, but Darius's gaze didn't waver. When you put your hands on someone because of the color of their skin, you don't get to hide behind what you didn't mean. You meant enough. Each word landed with the weight of years of discipline and restraint. There was no shouting, no threat, just the quiet power of a man who had seen too much to waste emotion on hate. The principal stepped closer, voice firm now. Mr. Henderson, we've already addressed the matter. You and your peers are suspended, effective immediately. Cole opened his mouth but no sound came out. His father's name, his privilege, his team captain title, none of it could shield him from the silence surrounding him now. Imani stood a few steps behind her father, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. Darius finally turned toward her, and the hardness in his expression softened. You okay? He asked simply. She nodded, whispering, Yes, sir. He studied her face, his eyes narrowing slightly. Did you lose control? The question made her throat tighten. No, she said after a pause. I wanted to, but I didn't. He exhaled through his nose, nodding once. Good. Then you did what you were raised to do. His tone carried pride disguised as calm. The kind of pride that doesn't need applause, only understanding. The crowd around them was still, caught between fear and respect. A teacher whispered, That's her dad. To another, as if saying it explained everything. To them it did. To see the man who had taught that calm strength standing there in flesh and blood was almost poetic. Mr. Cole, the principal, cleared his throat, breaking the spell. Mr. Reed, I want to apologize on behalf of the school. No student should ever have to endure what your daughter did. Steps will be taken to ensure this never happens again. Darius nodded once. Good, he replied, his voice softer now. But don't just write it in a report. Teach your students what respect looks like. The principal's shoulders eased, his expression shifting from embarrassment to admiration. I'll see to it personally, he said. Imani glanced at Cole one last time. His face was pale, his eyes full of something she'd never seen there before, shame. He mumbled something that sounded like, I'm sorry. But she didn't need to hear it. Some apologies mean less than silence. As the principal led the group back inside, Darius placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. Let's go home. His touch wasn't just comfort, it was grounding. A reminder of everything solid that still stood when the world tried to shake you. They walked side by side across the lot, past the same bus where it all began. The students watched them leave in stunned quiet, realizing they had witnessed more than a scene. They had seen strength that didn't need to prove itself. When they reached the car, Imani finally exhaled. You saw the whole thing? She asked. Darius nodded. Enough to know you kept your head. She looked down, her voice cracking. I wanted to hit him harder. He looked at her then, and for a moment his face softened into the faintest smile. That's how I know you didn't need to. Power isn't how hard you strike, baby girl. It's knowing you don't have to. The drive home was quiet. The sun dipped low, painting streaks of orange across the windshield. Imani rested her head against the glass, the tension slowly draining from her shoulders. Her father's presence filled the car like armor, steady, unbreakable. She thought about the faces at school, about how fear had turned to silence, and silence to something that looked almost like respect. The fight wasn't over, not really. But for the first time she believed she could win it without losing herself. That night, the house was quiet except for the rhythmic creak of the old ceiling fan and the faint hum of traffic outside. Imani sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cocoa growing cold in her hands. The day replayed in her mind like a film she didn't ask to star in. The bus stop, the laughter, Cole's hand on her wrist, the sudden silence when he hit the ground, her father's voice cutting through it all. It didn't feel like victory. It felt heavier, like carrying a truth too big for her age. The phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced over to see a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry for what happened today. I was there. I should have said something. No name, no signature. Just words that made her chest tighten. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, proof that someone had seen her humanity when others tried to strip it away. She put the phone down, her hands trembling slightly. Darius Reed entered the kitchen quietly, his footsteps steady as ever. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat across from her, his face calm but thoughtful. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Finally, he said, You've been quiet all evening. She shrugged lightly, eyes fixed on the dark swirl in her cup. Just tired. He leaned back, studying her. Tired's not the same as hurting. The words opened something in her. It's just, everyone saw Dad. The video's probably already around the school. I didn't want this. I just wanted to fit in. Her voice cracked at the end, and she hated that it did. Darius reached across the table and set his hand gently over hers. People like us don't get to choose when to make history, baby girl. Sometimes it finds us when we least want it. She looked up, eyes glassy. But I didn't do anything heroic. I just defended myself. That's the point, he said softly. The ones who change the world aren't always trying to. They just refuse to bend when it matters. His voice carried the quiet conviction of someone who had seen too much injustice to be surprised by it anymore. The next morning, the sun poured through the curtains with an unbothered brightness that didn't match the heaviness in her chest. But when Imani walked into school, something was different. The usual laughter that greeted her presence was gone. Instead, heads turned and conversations fell silent, not with mockery, but with respect. A few students nodded as she passed. Others gave small, awkward smiles, the kind people offer when they're realizing they've been wrong. Near her locker, the same freshman boy who had spoken up in the principal's office approached her. Hey, he said quietly, shifting from foot to foot. I just wanted to say thanks. For standing up. It made me realize I should have said something sooner. She smiled faintly. You did what mattered. That's enough. The words felt truer than she expected. When she reached her first class, even the teacher paused to offer a warm glance. Good morning, Miss Reed, he said, deliberately emphasizing her name, making sure everyone heard it. It wasn't pity, it was acknowledgement. She sat down slowly, her heart thudding with an unfamiliar feeling, acceptance that didn't come from blending in but from standing out. At lunch, she sat alone at first, as always, until a chair scraped across from her. It was Macy Collins, her face stripped of makeup and arrogance. Imani, she said quietly, eyes down. I deleted the video. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. It was wrong. The apology didn't erase the pain, but it planted something small and fragile in its place. A sense that maybe the lesson had reached further than she realized. Thank you, Imani said simply. Just make sure you speak up next time. For someone else. Macy nodded, eyes wet, and left without another word. That afternoon, when the final bell rang, she found her father waiting outside, leaning against the car, arms folded. Good day, he asked. She smiled for the first time in days. Better than yesterday. He nodded, the corners of his mouth curving just slightly. That's how it works. You win one day at a time. As they drove home, the world outside the window looked softer, the trees greener, the sunlight warmer. She knew the whispers would fade, the shock would dull, but the memory of that morning would stay etched in every corner of Havenridge. And maybe, just maybe, it would make them think before laughing next time. When they pulled into the driveway, Darius turned off the engine but didn't move. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of pride and melancholy. You know, I was your age when someone told me I didn't belong in the same classroom as them. I didn't have the chance to answer the way you did. You gave me something I never had. His voice caught slightly, a rare crack in his armor. You gave me peace. Imani blinked fast, fighting the lump in her throat. You gave me strength, she whispered. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of cicadas rising in the distance. The fight wasn't over, not for her. Not for anyone who looked like her, but something inside her had shifted. She had stood her ground, not with rage, but with dignity, and that dignity had changed the story for everyone who watched. Later, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the yard, she stood by the window watching the school bus pass by. Its yellow frame glowed under the fading light, and for the first time it didn't look like a battlefield, it looked like a promise. She whispered softly to herself, "They'll never forget." And deep down, she knew she didn't just win a fight that day, she'd started a lesson the whole town would carry for a lifetime. Before you scroll away, take a second to think about this. If you were standing in Imani's place that morning, facing those same cruel stares and crueler words, what would you have done? Would you have fought back, stayed silent, or walked away with the same calm strength she did? Tell us your answer in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story moved you even a little, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us what courage and dignity truly look like.